Hello and welcome to this AlbaCon 2020 interview video. I'm Pam and I'm one of the organisers of AlbaCon, which is an online charity role-playing game convention. The convention is being held on the 3rd and 4th of October 2020, with all money going to It's Good to Give, who provide amazing support to young cancer patients and their families. More at www.albacon.co.uk. Today we are talking about 2020, a year in RPGs, and I'm joined by these awesome people. I'm joined by Lloyd Guyan, I'm joined by Scott Malthouse, Richard Jansen Parks, I'm joined by Callum, and David Chapman. Evening, thank you very much for taking part. I'll get you to introduce yourselves and give us a wee bit of background about who you are and what your involvement is in RPGs. Callum, if we start with you.
Sure. I am Callum from the Royalist Podcast, the proudly London-based show of tabletop RPG fans across the Channel, the Pond, and beyond. So that's your place to go to. I think we are a show which is uniquely across borders. We'll find episodes dedicated to shops in France, in Denmark, in the US. We interviewed a club which was in Barcelona, and also a lot of stuff which are London-based, of course. And beyond that, since 2020 now, I'm also the happy developer of my very first own game, inspired by the many people I interviewed. It's called Paris Gondo, the life-saving magic of inventorying. Hopefully it will be out before the end of 2020. Well, at least a quick start version.
Thanks, Callum. And Lloyd.
Hi, I'm Lloyd. I play role-playing games and like to talk about them sometimes. For someone think that's important. I don't really know why. I'm just a guy. Don't mind me. Yeah, carry on.
Thanks, Lloyd. Dave.
Hi, I'm David F Chapman. I am currently line developer for Doctor Who, which was Doctor Who Adventures in Time and Space for Cubicle 7, and also founder of RPG A Day, which runs every August, trying to spread some positivity throughout the interwebs, and write other RPGs as well. Working on Wild as well, which is kind of very Inception meets The Matrix meets Sandman. But yeah, that's me.
Brilliant, thanks, Dave. Richard.
Hello there. I am Richard Jansen Parks. I write about RPGs for quite a lot of places, most notably probably Tabletop Gaming, a magazine. I handle most of the RPG reviews. I have a couple of columns in there, but I've also written for places including N-World, IGN, The Escapist, lots and lots of places. Anywhere where someone will pay me money to write about games.
Thanks, Richard. And last but not least, Scott.
Hello. I'm Scott Malthouse, and I run small press publisher Trollish Delver Games, where I publish games like Quill and English Eerie and In Darkest Warrens. I've also released Romance of the Perilous Land through Osprey Games recently, and a bunch of other stuff that's coming out with Against the Dark Master, hopefully later on this year, probably next year. But yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so 2020, quite a year. I think everybody will agree. And it's only September.
That's some way to start the conversation. Okay, fine, I guess.
I guess we'll probably tackle the big topic of 2020 first, because it's had quite a big impact on the game industry, certainly from a personal perspective, from what I can see. COVID-19. How has that changed? Has it changed the gaming industry or the community? What has been the impact of COVID?
So, if no one minds me starting, let's just get this out of the way. I mean, Scott, you mind me starting?
Go for it, yeah.
Okay. Let's just get this out of the way. COVID-19 is a horrible and terrible thing that's happened to us, and we need to find a way to get past it. Even we don't know if this is going to be sorted by the end of next year, even at this rate.
Yeah.
Things are coming up and down. No one knows what to do. It's just confusing. But I can tell you one thing right now. Kickstarter companies have blessed their gods, going, oh, look, I guess we're delayed because COVID. That's not my fault. I don't have to worry about it. I can't get your books to you. I'm sorry. Everyone has been basically accepting that all the RPGs that they're waiting for in the last year, or that was supposed to be released this year, are going to be delayed, and no one is questioning that. Sometimes it's COVID's fault, sometimes it's not, but that's the first big thing that we all had to accept, was that, guys, you're not going to get your Kickstarter on time. It's just the way it is. People are dying. There's more important things to worry about.
Yeah.
Once that's out of the way and companies come back, it'll be fine to go through. But also, companies are having to change the way they function, because online companies will do fine. People like who write books and post them on drive-through, they'll be great. They're used to that. It's companies that have to rely on physical products, and also for having offices, that mostly suffered. So we've had a huge pushback and a whole bunch of things, like Roots, the role-playing game, going to be delayed. Cyberpunk Red didn't come out. Even though it was ready, it wasn't like out there for people on time. Lancer managed to make it through somehow, but that wasn't until later. I'm still waiting for Kickstarter stuff to come through. Board games, tabletops, comics, everything is delayed, and we just have to accept that that's the way it is for a while until we can get around it.
Well, I guess I would feel that tabletop role-playing game. Well, my personal experience was that I never played as many tabletop role-playing game sessions as I'm doing right now. So COVID had a very weird effect for me, because it became an opportunity to play with people I never played with, to play with people who I used to play with face-to-face when I was in Belgium, people I started playing with, and suddenly they're playing online, so they're calling back everybody who's across the world to play with them again. I think tabletop role-playing games are in slightly better position than board games. I can imagine that board games is much more of a challenge. Now, the everlasting impact, I think in terms of the community, it will have very long-lasting impact. I saw the community come together, a lot of people who never played together, younger and older people, finally meeting online and trying new games. What's going to happen? I work in transport, and I have zero clue what's going to happen in that industry. And most industries are like that at the moment. And I'm sitting in France right now, where they got a peak of disease, which is even higher than the first one. And I really don't see things being sorted. I was seeing, about opening theaters back next summer. I'm not sure that's going to happen. So the long-lasting impact, I really don't know what it's going to be like. I don't think anyone does.
I very much agree with Callum on the curious effects it's had on people's personal gaming experiences. I mean, I have also been playing more games, I think, in these past 6 months than I have at any time before, mostly because all those times where scheduling become a problem, turns out not much of an issue when everyone's stuck indoors for 6 months straight. It has been also interesting with getting to play with people from further away as standard. For example, a few weeks ago from the recording of this, there was the virtual UK Games Expo, and I run games there every year. And at this time, because it was online, one of the tables I had a player from Brazil, a player from Poland, and some people from Switzerland. And ordinarily, I would have probably never played with those people. So it's been, I'm very curious as to whether this spreading out, whether this move online will stick when hopefully this finally stops being so much of a problem and we are allowed, to meet in person once more.
Well, actually, it's a good question, I find. You're playing online yourself. Are you considering going back 100% face-to-face, 50-50, or remain mostly online for your games? Let's say if somehow we get past this in a very somewhat short notice.
That is a great question, because I personally, I have no idea. We've sort of been pushing that problem further and further down the street as to whether this will be the new normal. Will our games always be online because we can get back from work, have dinner at home, and play, and it not be a problem?
Yeah, and
I think personally, I'll stay 90% at least online. Face-to-face will be exceptional stuff, mainly conventions. and maybe one table, but it's so easy, so accessible. I've got access to any game master in the world willing to run any games I want to try rather than be limited with my friends who are very good, but might not have the interest or time to play specific games I want to try. Now I can have access. I want to play Passion de la Passionette. I go to the Gauntlet, I find it, and I just play it.
Yeah, it's certainly opened up that space. I mean, personally, I generally only play online anyway, just because my gaming group we were face to face years and years ago, and then we kind of moved apart to different cities, and we just found it obviously just a lot easier to play online anyway. So I think I was fortunate to kind of understand how to use Roll20 and VTTs and all of that stuff, and that was kind of natural. But it's obviously good to see that, you know, the likes of Gen Con, who can probably maybe in the future run a parallel convention purely online there and drive, you know, more interest from, you know, from other gamers, from newbies who can't necessarily get over to the States. So
Well,
I think
that was going to be a follow-on question that I had is that the number of conventions that have gone online, do we see that continuing? Do we see that even post-COVID in a parallel space almost?
I think so. I mean, look at this. I think we've realised, and presumably organisers. I've never organised a con, so I might be talking trash. I've probably realised that it's actually. I mean, even though it's going to be a high workload to actually organise things like this, it's you know, you don't have to have the physical space. I suppose there's a lot of things that you don't necessarily have to consider when you're drawing people online. But I suppose it also throws up other problems such as, you know, connections and technical things like that.
Well, there will probably be a cull, I guess, next year of who's going to do a second one or to which convention are there going to be people come back. I think there's two big categories of stuff, or maybe three. There are conventions, there are people like UK Games Expo, Origins, Gen Con, who have a go at doing something online, even in other realms like we saw the Comic Con, so San Diego Comic Con, trying to do an online convention, and it was not very much of a success. And then you got people who sort of trying to have their first go at it. In parallel, San Diego Comic Con, we had the DC fandom, which was a tremendous success. It was the first time they were doing it. Going back to the realm of role-playing games in France or beyond France, really, in the French-speaking world, we had Cyberconf, which was launched like 3 weeks after the beginning of the lockdown across somewhat the world. And it was absolutely amazing. They're still my gold standard for conventions. And then you got Virtually Expo, you got UK Games Expo and so on. They got this experience of running conventions. And I think I had a good time Virtually Expo, but I think people went in thinking it would be the same as running a physical one, or they work with a team which is their physical team, which are extremely talented and dedicated, and they know how to run a physical event. But actually you need different people with the different skill sets and interests to run a virtual one. So it was great, but you know, it was not as good as the other sort of non-professional one, slightly less professional one that I saw at Cyberconf, which was truly amazing. And then you got streamers who do it, and it's even different. It's very exciting because there's so many different formulas centering on different stuff which have been happening this year, and it will be very interesting how those ideas come together and which survive and which don't, and how these consolidating things are ongoing.
If I may step in on this same subject before we go to David Jensen, you're acting like online conventions are a new thing in 2020. Like, I don't know about you, Scott, but I have my list of online conventions, roleplay conventions that I do every year, and that list never changed. It's just that the rest of you are catching on, and you're now jumping on there and being like, "Oh, what is this new online convention thing? Oh, I don't understand. How does this work out? Do I use Zoom?" Like, no, we've been past that. We're well and truly past that. Online conventions have always been a thing, and offline have been a thing. I don't think Gen Con and UK Games Expo and even AlbaCon need to have an online attachment to do an online one. But what they could do is they could try and promote the online ones that are happening as well, so people can do both. It's best we push, hopefully in 2021, now that you all know how good it is to just sit in your house and game in your pants, we can push up online conventions that are already going great and allow the offline conventions to happen as they are. That is, of course, if we're not all entirely stuck in our houses for another 2.5 years.
Which might
if
yet
the world,
happen.
yeah, I'll work on it later.
Anything else on anybody want to add anything else to that, or shall we move on?
Well, I guess once things get better, I would be very curious to see how things could become more mixed formulas with an online coverage of a physical convention. Again, going back to Cyberconf, one thing I thought was really awesome. Not only they had panels which were streamed live, but in between the panels, continuously they had like a FM radio show in between them, and they would go to virtual lounges, like they would go between booths and interview people. That's something you could see in a virtual convention, and having the mix of the two together. But yeah, again, we're not there yet.
I think for me personally speaking, I think it was great in the sense that this year I attended GaryCon, Gen Con. I've attended a couple of Dungeon Crawl Classic specific conventions that were online, and these are things that I would never have been able to attend in the physical space. But I could have probably done without a global pandemic to make that happen. Do you know what I think?
There's one thing I'd like to add is that I don't know if I'm very new at designing games, but this has been a tremendous opportunity for me to showcase, to run my games at conventions I could not have dreamed of visiting as a young designer. Metatopia is coming. I was hoping to run at Origins, but things happen. There's Gen Con. There's no way me in London with my budget, I would have been able to be there and showcase my games and find people. I've been running 20 playtests of my games since the beginning of the lockdown. I think if anyone out there is thinking of designing a game, this is your opportunity. This is your opportunity to be seen, to find people curious about them, and show your game and test your game. Get out there. It's so easy and awesome.
Do you think that the kind of the move online, and I know it's not all moved online versus through virtual tabletops. Some people are just sitting playing on Zoom, and some people are just on Discord, and there's no VTT. But do you think that it's driven any change in virtual tabletop? Has it changed anything in that market? I know that Foundry popped up, and I know various other virtual tabletops have popped up, but has it driven any change there, do you think?
I mean, the
May I
servers are
jump
taking
in?
a kick in.
I mean, also that. May I jump in on that one there? So for years, all we had was Fantasy Grounds.
Yep.
And then Roll20 turned up, and then for years, all we had was Roll20 because you were like, well, I don't need to download Fantasy Grounds. I'm not going to bother then, do I? Because I'm path of least resistance. And now we have Foundry, Astro Tabletop, Let's Roll, Roll. Why do they have the same name? Don't even, somebody, marketing. So all of these have made their appearance now, but it's not because of COVID. It's because they were all working on each other slowly and building up their fan base. Foundry has been going for like 2 years through Patreon. And when this kicked out, people were like, hey guys, check out Foundry if you don't use Roll20. Astro Tabletop worked by Drive-Thru RPG for so long. Roll just did its Kickstarter. Perfect timing, by the way, for that Kickstarter hitting right in the middle of that COVID crisis, right? Like, hey guys, get this, wonderful. Let's Roll has also been going for a while, also in this beta. All of these things realized that this was the year to be the big one because they were like, well, you know what? If you're gonna have things to go out, let's give them more options because the monopoly that Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds had has been too much. And they all came flying in and they've all been going up. And they're all in beta because none of them are perfect and all of them are working on. And every single one of those programs require player input. So 2020 has been a year of having the VTTs fighting each other to see who will get the most amount of people to program their VTT to be better than the rest. And it's a very weird way to look at things. Fantasy Grounds should be winning, but Fantasy Grounds is a paywall. Foundry, a paywall, which is much bigger than it looks like. Foundry has got a paywall, but it's only one-time payroll. Roll20, Astro Tabletop, kind of the same thing there too. because of this, there is this fight throughout this year of me watching the VTTs trying to pull in talented people to work on games, and that's what it's been about. It's just which one will get the better talent.
I think Fantasy Grounds has an image problem in the sense that the way that initial starting price seems shockingly high. When you weigh it up against a subscription for Roll20, which is a never-ending subscription to get the same features, it probably works out significantly cheaper.
Fantasy Grounds has a subscription now.
Yeah, it has a subscription anyway.
Yeah,
I think it had that.
It
even had that 4 years ago when I first started using Fantasy Grounds. I think the pricing structure is very confusing, whereas Roll20 has quite a straightforward pricing structure. And I think, I don't know enough about Foundry. I'm afraid.
That's okay.
I'm not sure if it's going to be a case of a big one. I mean, I know that's how we like things to be, to a big one. And I think people will come up to realize that there are different tools with different functions. And you don't really need all of that. It's my main problem with Roll20 is that it's trying to do too much at the same time. And personally, I find it fails at most things, except maybe the character keeper, which is the nicest thing about it. I think there's first of all, VTT is very bad for a French speaker because that's bicycle in French. I think things. The way we look at things should be a bit expanded. Saying I've seen people took on stuff like World Anvil for keeping track of their campaign, a Call of Cthulhu campaign, using Miro to have a board of they were making an investigation and keeping tracks of things and doing quick sketches. I personally use Miro to run my own games, and I find it very convenient to run indie games. And at the end of the day, we use Zoom most of the time because it's so far the best for free for audio and video. And we complement that with more tools. The Gauntlet, they put together a very exhaustive database of Google Doc and Excel spreadsheets, which are character keepers for a number of games, independent and so on. And in the end of the day, that's the function I need the most, keeping my character sheet and find things in a easy manner. But I need a good character keeper. I need a good dice roller. I need a good video chat thing. I don't really think like in design really that you can come up with a software or platform which does it all. Once you have D&D Beyond, sure, you can integrate it to your platform, but you don't really need to replicate that. Once you got Zoom, you don't really need to put all the infrastructure and the maintenance and the cost it represents of running an audio video platform on top of your thing. So my advice would be for people to specialize. And what I'm very curious about is that at the beginning of the lockdown, I've heard from a lot of professionals who are tabletop role players, but they are not professionals in the tabletop industry. But they were coming and saying, actually, wait a second, in my engineering practice, we're using this software to do this specific thing. I could use it for my games. So there's a lot of people right now working on different tools, which I think will come in a year or two. And it's going to be very interesting again to see what's going to be the cull, what's going to be the winner and the loser of that, and what does it look like once the battlefield is clear and there's just a couple survivors.
And one of the things that Mark, that you asked was, do we think that this has changed anything? And I kind of agree with Lloyd that I don't think this has changed anything. This is already all happening, but it means that things that would have been eking out over the next 2 or 3 years of a development, everyone's gone, now. This is the go time. And we've had this explosion of things that have been waiting in the wings for so long. All of a sudden, they've had a much wider audience. And I do agree that it's a very curious thing, because I am very lucky that I have several groups that I play games with. And over the past, God, how long has it been? Like 6 or 7 months? Yeah. Over the past eternity.
11 million days.
Over the past 20
days, yeah.
20, 30 years or so of my life. I've been I'm making my different VTT options fit my different groups. I've got one group that I play D&D with who are very focused on tactical stuff. They like maps and minis when we play in real life. So for that group, full of Roll20 maps and minis and character sheets, they're really invested. They use the character forums there. And there is another group that I run very story-focused things with. We used a Roll20 for a bit. Everyone couldn't be asked with it. We moved back to Skype and real dice. And for that group, all they needed really was a video platform. It's very curious. I mean, I agree. There's no one size fits all. The different things of it, that the different other platforms offer different things. And I don't think there's one that's going to be the best universal.
Yeah.
I may interject here with one last thing, if that's okay for everyone else, unless Scott and Dave have something they want to come up with. I actually have a counterpoint to both your arguments as to why I think there should be someone can make their one size fit all. And it's a slight change of topic, but it's also on a rise this year. And bear with me, this might be controversial. Hold on. Paid GMs. In the last 6 months, people, since they can't make money any other way, I'm looking at you, a certain website, that they want to try and make money in some other form. And they've been going to the paid GM module. Because they're going for paid GM modules, they're like, well, I need my work to look professional. So people on Roll20 have gone out of the way to make professional looking Roll20 modules. Same thing for Foundry, same thing for Astro, same thing for Let's Roll, same thing for Roll. All of them, every single one of those, they have the thing, they're very good at it, they make it look good, and they go, right, I've made this look professional now. Now I can make money off it. And just like in the days where cassettes were won by one certain type of medium, maybe the best VTT, not bicycle, to win this year or next year will be the one that makes it easier for paid GMs to make their modules on them.
That's interesting because paid GMs was a phenomenon which I saw picking up at the beginning of the year before COVID and in late 2019. In London, I've seen several people try to launch themselves as, as even collective of paid GMs. And it was sort of, they were put in disarray because of COVID. I can imagine they tried to reformulate their offer in an online platform instead. But that's an interesting phenomenon which has been there. It's kind of obscured by COVID-19, but that's definitely something. There's a demand for that, and I think there's a need. I think it's fair. It's fine. People go for that.
Here's another question. This is kind of crossing the beams, really. Roll20 released Burn Bright this year, which is, I'm not sure how it becomes what exactly it is that makes it a VTT only RPG, but it's definitely their product, and I think it's in conjunction with James Introcasto, isn't it? Do we expect to see any more of that? I mean, obviously some of you work in games publishing, so are we expecting to see, are you moving more online, producing more online resources? Has the fact that we might be in this for the long term, has that changed to producing games?
Okay, if no one's going for it, I'll go for it then. I'm giving you space. Y'all like, I'm just gonna shut up and watch this. Okay.
You're the Modifuse guy. Tell us about the LCAR.
Oh my god! Just because I'm here doesn't mean. Okay, so Burn Bright's main ploy is that it's a game built specifically for VTT. They built it so all the stuff is already in there. Because if we're to say games have not been online, that is a lie. We had View Scream like last year and like 4 years before that runs on there. We had Alice is Missing, which also runs through text messages throughout things. We have all these games. I mean, Alice was actually this year, actually. Shout out to Alice is Missing. Yeah, that was mwah. We had a whole bunch of games that also work the same way. But Burn Bright was the first one that went, hey, we're sponsored. We're actually being done by the VTT company. So everything you need to do is in there already waiting for you. Kind of like Neverwinter Nights-esque readiness for you to pop in and make the game and do role playing. That's new. That's something that isn't done normally. Whether or not it's a success is going to determine if other VTTs will do the same. Everyone is waiting to see what hands up, who's actually played Burn Bright in here? Wow, what a freaking surprise that is. Wow. Wow, I guess it's doing great, isn't it, everyone? Just going for gold. It's the problem with is that it's a VTT. You have to invest in Roll20 to play it. And that investment into Roll20 is the barrier. Roll20 hasn't reached a point where we've decided that it's good enough for us to use it to play the game. And since we're forced to use that, that's the problem. If things change, it might be different.
Yeah, and is Roll20 the best way to consume a role-playing game if you're wanting just to, crack a book open and read it? Is it? I know you can obviously use the app, but I don't know.
The app kind of blows, in fairness. It's not very good.
We don't talk about Roll20's app. We don't. Not in this house. Not in this house.
I've never used it, so maybe I'll stay away from it.
Maybe leave it that way.
Yeah, you may want to be. You may want to just.
I'm the
You
first
actually,
one who.
You may actually want to use
when,
it once, just so you know how good other things are in comparison. Yeah.
I'm the first one being
Fair
annoyed when D&D keeps being brought up, but I must say, as an occasional player of Dungeons and Dragons, I'm very impressed with D&D Beyond as a platform.
Yeah.
I think it laid the ground and it showed the way. Of course, they got resources that maybe not all companies do have, but in terms of having an interface to support your games, I must say that's a beautifully made tool, and that feels pretty much like a VTT thing. Even I don't know, it interacts with Roll20.
I think what's interesting about Roll20, about D&D Beyond and Roll20 is that you can see where D&D Beyond is going. Right? We're literally at this point we've got dice flying about the screen. We're literally a map of VTT, and given the proportion of games of D&D 5th edition that are run through Roll20, you'd wonder what happens when D&D Beyond comes to that point where it is its own virtual tabletop.
Yeah.
Is that going to just wipe Roll20 off the map in terms of D&D 5th edition?
I mean,
Yes.
I feel that.
Next question.
I feel that Lloyd was
yeah.
entirely. I mean, Lloyd was saying earlier about there's going to be maybe a platform that does eventually win, and from what he said, I kind of agree with him now. But I also think that the sort of side thing to that is that when D&D eventually launch their own VTT, they're going to win, and there'll be this over here, and then the VTT you play every other game on over here.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing
Yeah.
that we have different VTT different systems. I don't think that's great either.
I'm going to point something out. The main reason why this is important is, especially concerning this year, that D&D is so big that Pathfinder is an indie game.
Yeah.
That's how big D&D is. So we can't include D&D in any equality or any measurements of anything whatsoever. It has to be its own economic universe, its own expanded universe, its own thing on its corner, leave cinematic.
But I mean, that's really interesting. Oh, sorry.
At the same time, D&D is a weird thing because Wizards, I think the only one would be maybe Fantasy Flight Games. But what I find fascinating, D&D might be so big in terms of the number of consumers and the money they have, in terms of the money they spend to do things and their willingness as a part of Hasbro to spend money to do something. They don't do as much as other developers, I personally find. So whether or not Beyond will go on the way of doing a proper VTT platform, well, it will depend of how much money does it make. And it will have to make way more money than Roll20 would ever dream to do for Hasbro to ever bother to venture in that realm, because they'll be like, well, you make more money selling, I don't know, Monopoly or whatever than this thing.
I don't know. I feel that that one of D&D's largest. It's so weird that like we've got a group of people who are mainly indie, and we still spent half an hour talking about a D&D, but that's an aside. That their big strength really is that they are the go-to ubiquitous RPG. I think they get an awful lot from being you go to this one website and everything's there, and you don't need to see any other games.
Yeah, that's a strategy. Yeah,
and I think not only did he get all of that kind of that coverage, but I'm sure it brings them a lot of problems as well in terms of their own profile. So, do you know, the bigger you are, the bigger the target you are for criticism and so on.
I'd just like to point out before we jump off D&D is that they don't need to make money to make their VTT work. All they have to do is go, oh, by the way, D&D Beyond also gives you this VTT, and it's done. It's that simple.
Yep.
Yeah, but again, what they need is convince their own board, their corporate board of shareholders, that it's worth them spending a, it's like visiting a convention. They never show up at conventions outside of the US because Hasbro doesn't care for it. They don't.
Why would they? They'll just sit there and eat the money. Someone will go for them.
So I guess I'm going to move away from in a second. I'm going to move away from online play because we've probably done it to death. But I wonder, what do you think the impact has been? Obviously we have Roll20, and if anybody's tried to use the audio and the video through Roll20, you probably do that once. It's a bit like using the app, and you don't do it again. What do you think the impact is on other channels like Zoom and Discord? Do you see have you noticed a bigger uptake in Discord and people with Zoom? I know I've got a Zoom subscription and I didn't have one prior to lockdown, and it's purely to play games. And I wonder, any kind of expand with that explosion, has that been a thing in your groups? Has it been a thing in your organizations?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Zoom became a thing because of the pandemic, right? It was around beforehand, and then it got great marketing, and people were organically using it. I pretty much use Discord, or always have done. I imagine more people are doing that. Certainly when you've got the looping back to the gaming conventions, every gaming convention is then using Discord for all of their main channels and their lobbies and all of that. I don't know whether it's changed much aside from them having to up their server space and change some technicals. And I think, as someone was saying before, probably roll out some technical things a little bit faster than they probably should have done, or they were doing in the future. Anyway, I'm not entirely sure whether it's how much it's really changed, but then again, I'm just one person that's
Scott.
I have different opinions.
I have a different opinion, surprisingly enough. It's me. What can I say? Hey. Okay, so for years, we have been begging the internet and the universe to give us a space where we can type things and also talk to people and do both at the same time. And for the centuries, it feels like I've been playing online using Skype, using Google Hangouts, which was great. I miss you so much. Please come back. Let's go Google Plus.
It was so good. It was
so good. Sorry, that was last few years. Don't worry about it. Using Google Meet, using Jitsi, using Zoom, whatever you want to. None of those programs matter because Discord exists. Discord's incredibleness, the fact that you have a chat page that is persistent, and you have voice controls, and you have multiple threads. So you have basically you have the ICRPG, like the IRC chat thing going on, we'll talk about. You have the voice of Skype. You can also do a camera work of Zoom, I guess, if you want to use a camera.
Yeah, it just doesn't do it very well, though. That's the problem.
Guys, they just started. Come on, give them a break. You can do all those three things in one space, and you can have multiple ones open to go to different ones. And companies have caught onto this and have grabbed onto it as hard as they can. Like every company now has a Discord as of this year. Yeah. Like every company's like, come to our Discord, add me on Discord, put it up there, go in there, go to the rules. I don't know, thumbs up emoji, talk in the chat. Yeah.
Every club, every publisher, every podcaster, including myself, got a Discord, and typing text is nice. The audio is nice. There's even apps to record things. It's nice, but I personally find it's a mess. I got 30 servers. I'm not even notified when it's something tagging me specifically. It tags only when it's everyone or myself. So most of the time, of those 35 Discord, I check maybe 2 of them. I think we're still missing really, and it's ongoing debates I've seen with so many clubs, communities. I've seen it even recently with the Gauntlet, seen it with clubs. We're still missing the holy grail of a community supporting tool, I find. I personally find Discord to be too frantic as soon as you have, I don't know, 50 people. And most of the thing I'm talking of, they got 300 people. And it becomes sort of a mini Twitter where you post a question and it just disappears in a
Yeah,
second.
because there's no threading as there is in Slack. Yeah.
Yeah, and so recently at the Gauntlet they were having the argument. They got both a Discord and a Slack, and people were talking about should we get rid of the Slack in favor of Discord? And I was in the team of people disagreeing with that. But then I recognized that Discord's got benefits, but we're still missing it. Forums don't do the trick anymore. I've seen Misdirected Mark invest money and time into developing a forum like last year. It's dead. There's nothing happening there. Discord are too frantic for a lot of people, including myself, including people who are special conditions. Not special, but the stimulus is too fast. Facebook, you don't go there anymore because all your family is there, and it's a pain in the ass. Twitter, it's a dumbfire of things. If you want to do a hashtag fire Mike Knowles and all the things which are justified or not justified, but it's just so stressful to get there if you don't curate things. We don't have these two, I find, for which really support properly a community. I don't even know what this tool is like. I hope people are working on it right now, but we're missing
I know what Lloyd's
tool.
going to say, but I'm going to guess what Lloyd's going to say.
Go
Carry
on.
on.
Guess. No,
I think you're going to say. I think you're going to say Google Plus.
It was Google Plus. It was Google Plus. Google Plus was
Google
so
Plus was
good.
nice.
I don't
It
know why
was.
they got rid of it. It was so incredible. I'm so angry.
It's because
There were
only
like
5 of
12
us used it.
So just a final thing. I think that everyone's very right about having a communities and having the text message stuff integrated with the voice and video stuff. And I think that sometimes, as to how much a different voice chat VoIP programs are being used, I think that we sometimes forget that, probably through sheer dint of being on this panel, we're kind of the power users of the RPG world. And I would bet that the vast majority of RPG events over the past 6 months have been on Skype, on Zoom, on
Dave disagrees.
Facebook video.
I wouldn't have called myself a power user of anything. I'm still working out where to put my old VHS tapes.
Okay, so I tell you, one of the things this isn't. I guess it isn't a VTT panel, so we should probably move away from that. We could talk about it all day. Okay, so just completely changing direction. What games or publishers have stood out this year as breaking new ground? Big yourself up if you want. I don't care.
Well, no, I mean, I think Merkberg is probably an easy one to go for, but that's because it's a really interesting game, interesting design. I think it's just up for a Swedish Design Award, and that's not a role-playing award. That is an actual, just general design award in Sweden, which is obviously amazing, and that's showing I think a bleed through of role-playing to, I guess, being admired and accepted on a wider level academically or in other fields. And just, I think, I don't know if anybody's got the book or seen it. It's just
I nearly bought it this morning, actually.
It is a beautiful piece of work. In fact, I would expand on, I know that it's produced in association with the Supposed to Buy, but essentially everything that Free League or Free Langen has been putting out for the past couple years or so, I am consistently impressed by the quality of the physical stuff that they produce. I'm extremely lucky that I receive pretty regular review packages, and few of them have the Christmas morning feel as when something arrives from Free League, and I'm gonna, ooh, look at all these fancy, beautiful books with their lovely heavy paper and their beautiful dice and their incredible art. I think just purely on a design basis, those guys have been knocking it out of the park consistently for the past 18 months or 2 years or so. It's been great.
Yeah, I have to agree completely with that one. It's like they're everything they produce is just amazing. And Tales from the Loop is possibly my favorite game of the last 10 years. It's just like so few rules, and yet such a rich setting. We've been playing the Tales from the Loop for the last 2 years now, and it's still brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, I have a copy on the shelf that has never seen action, but I've read it many times.
Is that because you keep playing Dungeon Crawl Classics and forgetting about it? Right?
Yeah, that's entirely it. Yeah, that, and I have a group who are obsessed with 5th edition to some extent, although they will play Dungeon Crawl Classics as well. That's a big mug.
Have you thought about leaving your group? I mean,
Oh, no, God, they might watch this. They will watch this. No, I think they're great. No, yeah.
I am under contractual obligation to not big up any other program, so I'm going to cheat in this case. I'm not going to say a role-playing group, but I'm going to say a role-playing platform. I think I am very, very proud it's taken this long that people are finally getting to itch.io.
Yes.
I'm so happy that we're finally breaking the drive-through RPG hold and we're finally going to itch.io. It's taken a few years and a lot of weird crap, but we're doing it. RPGs are slowly coming to itch.io. People are publishing there. People are buying there. It's so much of a better platform, and it's growing. May I remind you all of the bundle of racial awareness, racial justice and equality that came out like in June after all the events of Black Lives Matter, which raised £8 million. I want to point that one out right there. itch.io is what it made. Also, that was the thing of the year for me. But carry on.
I'm not. You've actually preempted the question, because I had a question later on about itch.io, so we can maybe just go into that now. Sorry, carry on. Was that Dave? Was you going to say something there, Dave?
No,
it wasn't you. No, somebody spoke and I missed that.
It was me. I
cool.
was about to say. I mean, the bundle for racial justice and equality. I think it literally forced itch.io and other people to develop tools just to navigate the bundle, because there were so many customers, 800,000, browsing through. I don't even remember. Is it 1,700 games in there, including video games?
Something like that. Yeah,
amazing.
There's so many stuff that they had to develop new tools for people to browse their content, because there was so much of it. This was an amazing moment.
It was like watching Steam's early days and watching Valve going, oh God, people buying things, help me. Because itch went from the indie website to, oh no, we're viable now. People come to us. We need to do something right now. Oh my God. It's not just RPGs that are sold there. There's art, there's games, there's a whole bunch of other things that digitally move to the platform. But
wasn't the craft platform first? Was there where you would buy mittens for Critical
There was for a bit, but I don't
like
think they do physical stuff anymore. I think it's all digital only at the moment.
Okay.
I think I have to double check. I mean, the place, it's huge. It's a huge website. But watching it slowly, understanding that it needs to evolve in 2020 and evolving to fit with the times and what I'd created from it was an incredible, beautiful sight to behold. It's nice to go to itch.io and actually find something I'm looking for once. And I love how free it is, the platform, on how people put things on and how it doesn't screw creators. And it's I can talk about itch.io idea. Carry on.
Oh, yeah. That's really good. That's really good. Kind of that, because that was one of the questions that I had was about alternative publishing platforms, because up to this point, right, everything's been dominated by drive-through and the kind of associate sites from that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm very interested to hear kind of people's thoughts on that. We've seen a return to a lot of licenses, a return of a lot of licenses in retro games. I know that Cubicle 7 have relaunched Warhammer Fantasy Role Playing game, and I think Free Legion. You were talking about Free Legion earlier. They've had some success with Alien, and they've also got there's also a Twilight Vision Kickstarter. Were there any of those licenses and reboots that surprised you?
The weirdest one... Oh, sorry, Scott.
No, go ahead.
The weirdest one that I've been kind of impressed by, kind of horrified by, is the Labyrinth adventure game from A River Horse Games. It's this weird blend of RPG and choose your own adventure book. It has David Bowie in it. It's there are holes in the book where the dice live. The rules concerning where you put a different colored place marker ribbons are longer than the rules for the core gameplay. It's a fascinating experience. It's well worth a look. It's mad.
It's a strange thing, isn't it? It's essentially random. It's random parts of the labyrinth that you go into, right? And then you just eventually get further and further in until you reach the center.
Yeah. It's absolutely bananas. I can see it being a great way to. It's curious because it involves a GM. It's not a GM-less game, but there is so little storytelling choices that you'd have to make or decisions to make that I think it'd be a very, very shallow route into trying your hand at GMing.
I'm not familiar with it,
book.
But as soon as this call ends, I will Google it because now I'm fascinated.
Plus, I just have the song from the Labyrinth film in my head with David Bowie and dance, magic dance.
As long as you don't have that scene at the start of The Snowman where he's given a tour of his house, that was dreadful. Yeah.
I think one of the big surprises was A24 releasing the Green Knight role-playing game before the Green Knight film has come out. I think it's fairly highly anticipated at the moment, and they've released a boxed game and with no credits on it. And yeah, it's essentially almost I think a lasers and feelings type mechanic-y thing, fairly light. It's done as essentially the Beck Me Red box but green. It's got the adventure in it. It's an interesting looking thing, but it's the fact that this came out in tandem, or would have come out in tandem, with a fairly mainstream film.
God, was the Wendy game this year or last year?
I think it was last year.
It was late last year.
Yeah, with Wendy's. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
marketing.
Because we could still meet each other to talk about it back then. So.
That's right. Yeah.
Long ago.
I was personally very surprised by Cortex Prime. Is something I never played. I had heard of, and I want to try it. I got Michael Ross at the RPG Academy started a Smallville fan cast, so I was interested by the Smallville RPG, which uses a version of Cortex. And then within 1 week, there were 2 announcements. What was it? Checking my
Tales of
notes.
Exodia and Heroes of Grayskull.
Yeah, so Heroes of Grayskull set in the universe of Masters of the Universe, and then a role-playing game based on the Dragon Prince, which is a brilliant idea because it's an excellent show. I don't think it's as popular as it deserves to be, but I think it could be a great way to have new players joining, and it gives me hope for some more official games based on Netflix properties. But for me, it really came out of nowhere. Suddenly, 2 Cortex Prime games coming out with solid IPs.
I mean, it's not here yet, but I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward in kind of a terrified way to the Dune RPG from Amodifius, if and when that eventually comes out. I have no idea how they're going to make an RPG around it. It's going to be fascinating either way.
There was a beta. You should have probably gone to that. Probably should have gone to that.
It's 2D20. You got momentum token.
Callum, don't talk. Go away. Shut up. I have. I'm on NDA. Don't say anything else. I have a slightly controversial statement, so bear with me. Hi everyone, it's me. I don't know why people are still playing Cyberpunk Red. I don't understand. I'm sorry. Okay, Mike Pondsmith, if you ever hear this, I love you. You are God. I wish I was you. I don't know why people still play Cyberpunk Red. It is the same game. It has not changed from 50 to 20 to 30 years ago, and people are all over it like a rash, and it is insane. The box set, the jump kit is sold out everywhere. People just grab that like it was nothing. People are so excited to play a game that came out 30 years ago, and I don't know why.
I think part of it's because of the video game hype as well.
I mean, yeah, get hype for the video game, but like, you know, maybe play a system that isn't 2 billion years old and feels that way.
It is the
Isn't
most aggressively 80s thing. From the name. Oh, what genre is this game? Cyberpunk? Cool. Done. Print it.
It's like my game Horror.
No, I actually can't blame them for that, because like they made the game like back when the genre barely existed, so kudos to them. And like there are like you can play as like a rock star with a gun. And then you go to combat and you've got to look up things on reference tables, and it's crazy.
But I didn't see that many people running it at conventions online. Are people? You know, I think people are getting more comfortable with the idea that some of us are collectors. You know, there are games they play and games they collect. Especially when you see beautiful games like Morkborg. I mean, there's all these games which seems gorgeous now. Morkborg, Quest. Yeah, I mean, we live in a golden age of beautiful books. But even before the pandemic, I got a small London apartment, and I stopped buying physical books. And the last few I bought, actually, they're so beautiful that I don't want to use them when I run my games. I got offered a Vampire the Masquerade. I got Nibiru. I got other stuff from Modiphius. Yeah, they're too beautiful. I don't want to damage them. So how many of those copies of Cyberpunk Red and other games are purchased but not played, which personally I'm not judging. I got a friend, he's got an extensive collection of role-playing games. He reads them so lovingly, but he doesn't play that much of them. And, you know, it's fine. It's absolutely fine.
Aren't we all just accidental collectors of role-playing games anyway? Because I have a shelf full of things that I've never played. just too many games and not enough time.
Dave, you must have played every single one of those on the shelf.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
that's all Doctor Who. So.
I mean, okay, fine, you're right. 2020 is the year of collection because you can't see your friends to play the game.
Do you know?
So
And it's actually a kind of symptom of playing online as well, because if you wanted to introduce a new game to people at the physical table, then you bring the book along, right? And you can all pick up the book and pass it around. There's a challenge involved in that when they have kind of quick start rules or anything. There's a real challenge in, unless you want to go down a kind of, a fairly shady route, which you don't want to do, then you're relying on kind of you having to explain the game remotely to somebody else, and you're the only one with all the reference documents, which is kind of a wee bit more challenging. So that's kind of slowed things up a wee bit for me.
Actually, that also brings me another topic of 2020, which is that we need, even though people still do it, we do need to make it so getting the physical copy gives people free PDFs. Not every company does it.
Yeah.
Specifically
Yes,
Fantasy
absolutely.
Flight. Because if games are going online, having the PDF version to share to people is fairly good. But then comes the question of, do I give them the whole PDF? And if I do that, is that illegal? Or do I give them just like a corner of the PDF and let them look at that so they have no choice but to go buy the game? And this fight's not been a real fight until like this year, when everyone is now like, okay, so how does online gaming work?
Well, that's the thing. That's where I'm personally not that fussed about VTTs, platforms, and so on, because what I'm interested into is gaming ads. And that's where I find Powered by the Apocalypse games are very strong often, because you end up with your booklet, you're the PDF of your booklet, that's it, you're done. And then again, you've got resources created by the community, which I believe are technically legal. If you retype everything you need and you make it automatic in a little Excel spreadsheet or Google Doc that you share, that if you fill in your thing with your character, everything is in place, and so on. That's what I need as a player. I just need, the information. On the contrary, I would be very annoyed to be. I had that working on streams for sponsored games. They send you the full PDF, and I need to show up on a Friday evening. I need to play the game for the stream, and I'm just so annoyed to have 200 pages of PDF, beautiful and so on, but so long to load on my screen, and I just want to create a character. I really don't care about all of that. So I think that's something the publisher need to look at, how they can package the different bits of information so they are easy to find and, if possible, interactive in a limited form.
Okay, probably come to the end of the time we're kind of looking to do this now. So I'm going to just finish with one question, I kind of round the table. What's the one biggest event of 2020 for you that has occurred in your gaming life? And we'll start with Callum. Sorry, just because of where you are
it's
located.
It's fine. It's just
in the Zoom window.
It feels very shameless pluggy because my big event in terms of gaming is developing my own game and running it for people. It was in development for a while. I started playtesting face-to-face just before the pandemic, but when the pandemic showed up, it really picked up an amazing amount of steam, and now I've run it for so many very encouraging players, amazing people. I was so lucky to run it for people at Modifius, at Chaosium, people at conventions, at Virtually Expo. I'm going to run it at the AlbaCon. So it's a shameless self-promotion. But yeah, Paris Gondola, the life-saving magic of inventoring.
Self-promotion is absolutely fine. Yeah.
So my game, I'm so happy for the experience of developing a small game and seeing how my interaction with fellow game designers, which is such a welcoming community. I've been joining lounges organized by Jason Pitre for people across the world who want to get into game design. The type of interaction I have with people and players is so different than the interaction I had developed recording my podcast. And it's been a pure joy and a pure blessing. And I cannot encourage people enough to have a go at it. If you have an idea, something you think, hey, I'd really like a game which does that, go ahead and do it and go out there and play it with people, because you have amazing interactions.
Thank you. Lloyd, what about you?
I was going to say the bundle of racial, I mean, not affecting me specifically, but a bundle of racial quotes in Just an Itch.io is like 10 out of 10. That was the moment of the year for me, like right there.
Yeah,
right
I think that's a very good moment of the year. Yeah.
Yeah. Personally, I'm looking forward to the Rivers of London role-playing game coming out fairly shortly. That's going to be really cool.
Oh my god, yes.
I mean, it's going to be all right. As long as you get some good writers in it, should be fine.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lloyd. Dave, what about yourself?
Probably the coolest thing is quite a small and personal one to me, which was thanks to the wonders of the lockdown, I've gone back to playing first edition D&D with my gaming group from 35 years ago.
Oh, that's good.
Wow.
I mean, we were a very close-knit D&D group from in my teens anyway, and we've always kept in touch. And kind of was spread across the world. There's a couple of people in Australia, a couple in the States, and things like that. But now, thanks to the new tech and things like that, we've gone back to playing original D&D with our original DM after all these years, and I'm finally getting to catch up with all the friends from decades ago, which is great.
Thank you very much, Richard. What about you?
Ooh, so on a very personal thing, the biggest thing that's going to affect me in 2020 hasn't actually happened yet, so I'm cheating slightly. But about 2 days after AlbaCon, I'm going to be having my first kid, and I have no idea how that's going to be affecting my my role playing.
Do you want me to tell you? Because I've got lived.
No, I don't think I do. Yeah. No, I think I want 3 more weeks of
blissful
happy ignorance.
Yeah.
But that's actually been really interesting, because I have been having to talk with my regular gaming groups. We're going to wrap up any campaigns that I'm running. I'm probably going to be out for about 2 or 3 years. And then try and slowly segue my way back in. I have the advantage that I can technically call it work.
And
will
the
never
good,
see him again.
the good thing is that the pandemic should be over by 2028 when you're back to gaming. So,
Christ.
yeah,
In March, we were like, oh,
advice as a father of 2 years old, try to make the most of the first months and to some extent the first year. I don't know where you live, but when they're very little, you can still go to baby cinema, you can still go to museums, you can still play and have the baby in a cradle next to you. Things get tougher when they're toddlers. So
Yeah,
try
that's
to
it,
do
yeah.
the most as soon as
Yeah.
possible. Do not wait.
I mean,
Go to
on the-
coffee shops
the
and
game
etc.
schedule the
pool-
game every night for the first year.
No. On the plus side, our nerdy friends have been buying us some adorable baby crows. So
Oh,
Well, good luck, Richard.
thank you.
Congratulations, and Scott.
Yeah, not quite as good as that.
Sorry, dude. Sorry.
But at the end of last year, Romance of the Perilous Land released. So I think it's pretty much just been the reception that's had in the kind of first half of this year, being able to do things like this, and producing English Series second edition. Just working on a couple of commissions that I probably wouldn't have ever done prior to probably last year. So yeah, just having irons in the fire, I think.
Plus, you got to really annoy some Viking Nazis, so I consider that a victory as well.
Yes, yeah, there was that.
I don't know that story, but the outcome sounds perfect. Yeah. Okay. Listen, thank you very much for your time. It's been really interesting listening to your kind of your views on all these topics about 2020. I'm also grateful to you for stepping in and giving up some of your time to help AlbaCon and help a great charity, and it's good to give. So thank you, everybody. Just a reminder, AlbaCon will take place on October the 3rd and 4th. The website is albacon.co.uk, and we are raising money for It's Good to Give, who provide support to young cancer patients and their families, and they have an amazing Ripple retreat on the shores of Loch Venacher in Scotland. Thank you, everyone. Great to talk to you, and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.